embedded it into my sermon. I just like to say just a couple of things about myself so you know who's standing up here, as just a few facts. I am a second career pastor. I was primarily a bookkeeper. It took me a long time to get through college because I was raising children. And I became an ordained pastor at Hillcrest Christian Church in Overland Park, Kansas in 2003. And I retired a few years ago. I moved to Washington, Missouri, summer of 2024. And I saw that you all had a need here, and I contacted Melissa and said, hey, you need me, I'm available. And so here I am, and I'm delighted to be with you. I love houseplants. My favorite thing to do is to go out in early July and find those poor little plants out in the Ace parking lot, Ace Hardware parking lot, and they're almost shriveled and they're almost gone, and they're so root bound into those little tiny plastic boxes. And I love to rescue those and take them home and put them in a bigger pot and see what happens, because I don't know what plant I'm buying. I know nothing really about plants, but I take them home, I put them in dirt, I give them lots of water, I never feed them, and they grow. And they grow. And I just find them delightful. And I was going to tell you about one that I had not too long ago, what I have right now. In 2020, during the lockdown days, my daughter had gone and bought some plants to bring some green indoors and all this kind of stuff. And we were living together at the time, and I saw this one beautiful plant. I really was drawn to it. I love bright colors. And so she gave me this plant, said, yeah, here, you can have it. And I've had it since. And this summer it has kind of stiff stalks on it. And if I could tell you what it was, I would, but I can't. Because I went to several plant identifiers and they all said something different. So I don't know. Anyway, so there was a stalk, and it was kind of leaning way over this way. And I thought it would be better if I could coax it to go this way, and I broke it off. And I was like, oh, these plants are my babies. Now, I have 4 kids, don't get me wrong. I know what real human babies are like, but these plants now are my babies. And I broke this little stalk off, and I was like, oh. So I just shoved it in the middle of the pot, and there's no leaves on it, nothing, right? And a month or so later, it's still standing there in the pot. And I thought, oh, this is dumb. And I started to tug on it. But for some reason, I decided to just leave it there. Today's text is from the book of Isaiah, chapter 11, verses 1 through 10, and it's in the Old Testament selection for the Sunday for the lectionary this week. And I'm going to read from the New Revised Standard Updated English Version. That's a mouthful for you. A shoot will come up from the stump of Jesse. From his roots a branch will bear fruit. The Spirit of the Lord will rest on him, the Spirit of wisdom and of understanding, the Spirit of counsel and of might, the spirit of the knowledge and fear of the Lord, and he will delight in the fear of the Lord. He will not judge by what he sees with his eyes, or decide by what he hears with his ears, but with righteousness he will judge the needy. With justice he will give decisions for the poor of the earth. He will strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he will slay the wicked. Righteousness will be his belt, and faithfulness the sash around his waist. The wolf will lie down with the lamb, and the leopard will lie down with the goat. And the calf and the lion will be yearlings together, and a little child will lead them. The cow will feed with the bear, their young will lie down together, and the lion will eat straw like the ox. The infant will play near the cobra's den, and the young child will put its hand into the viper's nest. They will neither harm nor destroy on all my holy mountain, for the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. In that day, the root of Jesse will stand as a banner for the peoples. The nations will rally to him, and his resting place will be glorious. May God add a blessing to the reading, hearing, and understanding of these words. The prophet Isaiah was writing around 733 before the time of Jesus, and he lived in the southern kingdom of Judah. And he was the advisor, and Isaiah was the advisor to Judah's king Ahaz, and Judah's brother country to the north, Israel, and the Arameans of Damascus, which lay between Israel and Assyria, tried to force King Ahaz of Judah, who lived in the southern kingdom, to join in their rebellion against the mighty kingdom of Assyria. The prophet Isaiah advised Ahaz to stay out of the conflict. So Ahaz did. He stayed out of the conflict. Instead, he allied himself against Israel and joined the forces of Assyria, the Goliath, the most prominent nation in that area. They had the most modern weapons and sophisticated administrative structure, and that helped them remain in dominant power for over 200 years. The alliance of Judah and Assyria destroyed Samaria and Israel in 721 BC. Israel and Judah were brother countries. They were all descendants of Abraham through his son Isaac and Isaac's son Jacob. Isaiah was mortified that Ahaz would ally Judah with the Assyrians, who worshipped many gods and was bent on total world domination. However, Isaiah was hopeful that the next in line to rule Israel, young Hezekiah, would be the righteous Davidic king long hoped for, the one who would bring about a peaceable kingdom. In earlier passages of this book, Isaiah was hopeful that the peaceable kingdom would happen in his lifetime. But by the time these verses from chapter 11 were written, it seems he had given up hope of witnessing this and projected his hope into the future. He saw a dead stump, but hoped that God would find a way to bring life from what seemed to be dead. Today, the second Sunday of Advent, when we traditionally contemplate what peace is and how we might create a peace-filled world, do you wonder what such a world would look like? I know I do. Isaiah turns to nature and describes predator and prey not only coexisting, but genuinely enjoying one another's company. How many of you have shared memes and pictures and stuff on social media of things like a rat on the back of a cat, or a cat snuggling up to a dog, or a tiger nursing piglets, or a lioness adopting antelope calves? Who among us does not find comfort and a laugh when we see a picture like that? I just love looking at those kinds of things when natural predators and prey are coexisting. I think that the reason that we like it so much is not only is it an oddity, of course it's an oddity, we always laugh at oddities, but it's also a sign of hope. Deep peace running between predator and prey. We do this, but finding lasting peace hasn't happened in all the centuries of human existence. Just as in the days of Isaiah and King Ahaz, it seems like chaos and cruelty have become the norm. And we find ourselves in a particularly vicious cycle of it. Like Israel and Judah, we are siblings warring against one another. We have divided into tribes and refuse to invite anyone other than those we view as correct into our circle. We do this out of fear, out of self-righteousness, and because forces on the outside find it advantageous to keep us in fear of our neighbors. Yet we desperately seek peace for ourselves, for our families, for our neighbors, for our communities, for our country, and yes, for our world. The question is, how is peace going to become a reality? And what part do we play in bringing it about? First, can I remind you of these words from Jesus in the 14th chapter of the Gospel of John? He says, peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world does. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid. Okay, Jesus, you had me up to the point where you said, do not let your hearts be troubled and do not be afraid. That's a tall order. How on earth are we supposed to do that? Well, for me, my first inclination is always to put my head in the sand. If I don't see it, la 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 la, it's not happening. I can pretend that everything is completely okay, and then I'll feel peaceful. There are two problems with that. Number one, I'm not built that way. And number two, Jesus also said this thing about blessed are the peacemakers, which to me implies that peace isn't just an inside job. But what are we supposed to do when everything in the world is constantly leaning into chaos and away from peace? I can only share with you what I do in the midst of this suffering world. I do what I can, when I can, as I am able. Right now, I'm participating in gathering clothes for a family in need. I've donated food, all of those. I even donated some pet food to the local Humane Society because pets get overlooked in times of stress and store. And that's not to toot my own horn. That's not much. But I did what I could and when I could do it. I know I do it knowing that the peace of God is within each and every one of us because Jesus said, I leave you my peace, right? When we look for it, we can find it. I do it with the assurance that Jesus gives each of us the power and the privilege to be peacemakers. What a privilege. World peace doesn't begin with the leaders of government. It begins when an Israeli and a Palestinian see and honor one another's humanity and work together to end suffering. Peace begins when we seek common ground with our neighbor that we disagree with politically. Peace begins when we do not allow our fear to keep us from standing up for justice and human dignity for all. Personal peace is knowing that no matter how bleak things may appear to be, we need to laugh at the absurdities of the world. We need to remember that the world continues to spin on its axis and rotate around the sun. We can look for the things that are working well, even if we must dive deeply to find them, and reclaim our personal peace. I would wager every penny I have, which aren't many pennies, by the way, but that's okay, that the world will not be totally at peace before I shuffle off of it. But I truly believe we're in a time of angst that happens when we're growing toward a new way of peace. Most of what we want in life comes only after we struggle. When the pain and the struggle seems too much, we might be tempted to stop and coast or simply give up to the pain and give in. But we must hold on to the hope of peace even when the world is at its darkest. Jesus gave us his peace. Isaiah referred to the stump of Jesse and pointed out that just because a tree looks dead, it doesn't mean it can't uproot, can't sprout something new. Just as the Davidic line brought about Jesus. So you remember that bare stalk of mine that I shoved in the middle of the pot? Well, when I started to try to tug it out a few months after I had done that, it wouldn't come up. And I thought, well, that's weird, but it was still just as bare as it could be. And now On either side of that stalk, coming up from the bottom, are two brand new shoots of leaves. It's rooted itself and sent out runners from where it started. Now, see, since I know nothing of plants, I had no idea that that was even a possibility. And, I think that's true in our world. We can witness things that we think are dead. And God can take them and use them for new life. That, to me, is peace. Amen.